ToastMasters Club EC, presented by me, Aahana Rao from 8th CLSP. Now, I'm not going to spend much time on myself, but my name is Aahana Rao and I study in 8th CLSP. Most of you probably know me because I have been in GIIS EC for quite a while now, more than 10 years. My hobbies include reading, listening to music, as well as dancing. And as my personality, you could call it sunshine mixed with a little hurricane. I enjoy public speaking and have picked up and learned a few tips and tricks, which I would like to share with you all today. So here are a few general guidelines which we expect you all to follow during the presentation today. First of all, please stay on mute and turn on your videos at all times. Kindly ask questions, if you have any, at the end of the presentation. Please pay attention at all times and listen actively. Unmute yourself when you're asked to. And last but definitely not the least, keep an open mind during the presentation and enjoy. So here are the few broad topics that I will be covering today, which is expressions and voice modulations. So let's begin with the first agenda for today, which is expressions. Now, you must be wondering, what are expressions? To start with, expressions come naturally to everyone. But if you Google it, which I'm sure most of you are very good at, expressions are the action of making known one's thoughts or feelings by emoting or showing emotions on your face. Note that expressions are the key characteristics of non-verbal communication. Now, let's go into the scientific part of it. It is widely supported within the scientific community that there are 7 basic emotions, each with its own unique and distinctive facial expression. There are 7, just like the 7 samurai or the 7 dwarfs, which I know most of you are familiar with. They are anger, disgust, contempt, fear, happiness, sadness, and surprise. You can take a note of these as they are pretty important. Now, I want you guys to look at the emotions shown on the faces below, and one of you tell me what emotion is shown on the left one. Raise your hands.
Yes, is it my turn to speak? This is
Yeah,
cricket.
you can answer.
Yep, so for the left one, it's a happy face.
Okay, that's correct. Now, someone else, what is shown on the center one?
The center, it seems like it's some confusion.
Okay. And now someone tell me what's shown on the right.
Sad.
That is correct. So I guess most of you know how to see the facial expression and the emotion and link it together. Now, why do we need expressions? So, first of all, facial expressions are a crucial part of public speaking. It helps the audience or the other person understand what you are talking about better. It also helps you to capture the audience's attention. So, a bored or an expressionless face can quickly communicate to your audience a lack of interest in your content. If your audience perceives that you are not interested in what you are talking about, then the odds of them being interested are also very low. Make sure your face is expressive, enthusiastic, and conveying the applicable emotion during the course of your talk. Third, facial expressions also create something called dynamism. In case you're confused, they give the impression that you know what you are talking about and you believe in your ideas. So they convince the audience that you are confident in yourself. Now, I have a question for you guys. What do you think conveys disinterest in your content? You can raise your hands.
Disinterest in your content could be showed by a bored face or a straight face.
Yes, that is definitely correct.
If your topic is unclear or hard to understand.
If you're confused in what you're talking about, yeah, that is also correct. Any of you have any different answer? Okay, so let's move on. So now the question is, how do I use my facial expressions effectively? So first of all, you should know that whether on camera, whether you're on stage presenting or communicating in a meeting or a presentation, your facial expressions send messages that are just as important as the content itself. They can give you the chance to enhance your point, distract from it, or just keep confusing your audience. First, to use your expressions effectively, your facial expressions must match your content and your emotions. It's important to avoid something called cue incongruence in your facial expressions and your body language. Cue incongruence occurs when your verbal cues or what you're talking about and your non-verbal cues, which is your expressions and body language, say two different things. If you tell someone really good news and they frown, they look down and they say, "That's great, I'm happy for you." What would you think about this? Do they actually seem happy for you, or is something else going on? Chances are you assume this hypothetical person was not at all happy for you. So, as this example suggests, most people actually tend to believe non-verbal over your verbal cues. So, for this reason, it's very important that your non-verbal language enhances your verbal language, and this helps you to reinforce the message you're trying to get across to your audience. Keep in mind that it is the presenter's connection to the words that can bring them to life for the audience. Experience intensively what you want to convey, and the facial expression will definitely reflect it. Less is more, but please remember not to grimace. Okay, now I want you to match the expressions with the emotions. You can raise your hand for the first one. So first is A, B, C, D, or E.
First one will be D.
That is correct. It's obviously showing a surprised emotion. For the second question?
The second one is happy.
Yes. For the third one?
The third one is scared.
Yeah. The fourth one?
The fourth one, it's with the third one, it's and surprised, right?
This third one can actually mean sad.
But isn't it one sad?
But it would be, yeah, because the first one is surprised, so the third one would be scared.
So fourth one is sad.
Yeah. Fifth one?
The fifth one is angry.
Okay. You all are doing really well with matching the emotions and the expressions. The second one is to pay attention to your audience's facial expressions. So, in the same way that your facial expression gives an insight into how you are feeling, the facial expressions of your audience give a powerful insight into how your audience is feeling. So, if the audience's facial expressions are blank, then the chances are they're becoming disengaged and maybe even bored. However, if their facial expressions communicate joy and excitement, then you're most likely winning over their hearts. By reading the facial expressions of your audience, you can make decisions and adjustments on the fly to keep everyone engaged and interested. But remember, don't pay too much attention to the audience that you get distracted yourself. Research shows that when looking at a group of people actually tend to focus on faces expressing stronger emotions, whether those emotions are positive or negative. And they pay less attention to those people conveying less expressive emotions. So, in the context of public speaking, this attentional bias can shape the speaker's impressions on how they're being received by the audience. Since they pay more attention to the more emotionally expressive audience, they tend to conclude that an audience's overall reaction is more intense than it actually is. So now I want you guys to show what a bored audience expression would look like as an activity.
Could you tell it again because your voice was a little breaking?
Yeah, I had asked, I want you guys to show what a bored audience expression would look like.
Okay, for your speech, it can be interesting.
Thank you. So now show me what an interested audience expression would look like. That is correct, Darsh. Good job. Okay, so let's move on. Now, facial expressions on camera or video calls like Zoom are extremely important. So when communicating remotely on camera, which is obviously very common nowadays while we're using Zoom for almost everything, so you should note that the only tools that you have to sound convincing and sincere are your voice and your facial expressions. Your audience cannot see your entire body, so they do not have that direct in-person eye contact to form a connection. And they can also rarely see gestures because it is such a small allotted space. This means that facial expressions can go a long way in persuading your audience with your speech. Sorry. So this is what a bored audience would look like versus an interested audience on Zoom, which you can also look at. Now, last but not the least, a smile goes a long way. Always remember, it is okay to smile, as long as the content allows and it's appropriate, but smiling is wonderful. A smile is definitely the best way to start a speech. It relaxes you as well as the audience. It makes you feel like you are in sort of a comfort zone, so you can speak much more confidently. Facial expressions can enhance the words you say, much like gestures. If you have sympathy for the subject of your speech, then it is definitely okay to show it. However, a permanent smile seems artificial, complacent, or even debilitating. If you smile without a break, you may seem suspicious. Beware of bad facial expressions, which is a bad superimposed smile. If there are moments during your speech when you want to make your audience think, then putting on an artificial smile definitely does not work. When you put on an artificial smile, nobody takes you seriously. Would you take me seriously if I keep smiling like this? I'm guessing not. Now I'm asking an obvious question, which is very important. What do you have to avoid when smiling?
You have to avoid eye contact.
Actually, that is not correct. You have to still maintain eye contact. Anyone else?
You have to make sure that you don't smile for too long of a period of time.
Yeah, so it doesn't seem fake. That is correct.
Make sure you don't show your teeth too much.
Yeah, exactly. Now let's focus on a few tips for expressions on public speaking. Eye contact. So eye contact is one of the key ingredients for successful speaking. A speaker who reads their notes constantly, looks at their feet or their visuals, and never looks up at the audience, communicate that they are nervous or maybe even unprepared. A speaker who tries to look at almost every part of the audience will be sure to win them over by confidently engaging them. When you form eye contact with the audience, you form a sort of connection and they understand what you are talking about better. Practice makes perfect. For some presenters, exaggerated facial expressions may not come naturally. And just like any presentation skill, it takes practice to develop them. So consider practicing your speech in front of a mirror and focus solely on your facial expressions. So this will help you judge your expressions and adapt them as necessary. You will know exactly what you look like by looking at a mirror, and it will help you control your expressions better. Now, let's move on for the next agenda for today, which is voice modulations. So, what does it even mean? It refers to how you control your voice when speaking. When we speak, we're able to change the message by varying the tone, the stress on words, and changing the rate of speech. So when you modulate your voice, you can choose to go louder or softer, faster or slower, dramatic or even emotionless. It's completely your choice. Basically, voice modulations means using your voice and tone to communicate your message more effectively. Effective voice modulation can mean the difference between a boring speech and an audience captivating one. However, voice modulating is obviously not easy and it needs to be practiced. So let me repeat this now. The sound of your voice matters twice as much as the content of your message. Your voice modulation can completely save a boring speech. Now, why do we need voice modulations? We normally use voice modulations in our daily conversations, but the problem is when we go up on stage in front of an audience, stage fright completely dries up our throat and makes it hard for us to effectively use our tone and pitch. See, the thing is, when we start out speaking on stage, we tend to talk in one range or in a boring way. We feel comfortable talking like that, and so we stick to it. But when we do this, our voice sounds monotonous and the audience automatically tunes us out. They think they know what we're going to say next, and so they just stop listening. Voice modulations help in clarity of communication and helps you express your emotions. That's why we were given our voices, to express. It helps the speaker to get attention of the audience and captivate them. With the correct voice modulations, one can make their speech much more interesting and understandable. It also helps the speaker to show confidence. One of the most important things we can display when public speaking is confidence, and nothing can reflect this more than your own voice. Voice modulations is also used in acting. They help us to take the roles of characters as well. So now let's do a small activity. I want to hear you modulate your voice to become a character. So raise your hands and try to say this line as an evil witch.
Right. This apple.
That's accurate. Good job. Now try saying this same line as your mother.
Hey, will you try eating this? Will you try this apple?
Good job. Now try it as your friend.
Hey, will you try this apple?
Good job. So I guess you understood how voice modulations can be used to take up a character. Now, here are a few tips to use voice modulations effectively. Emphasis. So this is the most basic and quickest way to to add some sort of range in your speech. Go through your speech and see which words are key to communicating your message. Pick these words and give them a sort of weight in your speech through your voice. So here is an example. I will say the same line twice and you try to see the difference between them. First one. Let me talk to you about a word that is overused, never quite understood, and most importantly underrated, the word millennials. And now the second. Let me talk to you about a word that is overused, never quite understood, and most importantly, underrated, the word millennials. So as you can see, adding a bit of emphasis on these words will help the audience understand more easily which words you want them to focus on. Pauses. So when we go on stage, the adrenaline is normally rushing through our veins. We could be excited or even shaking with nervousness. And that's completely normal. A stage tends to do that to all of us. But the problem is, because of this stage fright, we tend to rush through our speech. Being conscious about your speech and providing a few pauses every once in a while can greatly improve the impact of a speech. Silence. Silence is often overlooked when it comes to public speaking, but it can definitely be one of your strongest tools. Starting your speech with a moment of silence or a long pause after you say something very hard-hitting can go a long way in creating the impact you desire among your audience. And when we take a moment to let our statements just hang there, it can have an outstanding impact. Loud and soft or vocal variation. The volume of your speech plays a key role in communicating your message more effectively. It is an easy way to modulate your vocal tones. We need to be loud so that everyone can hear the words being spoken. But at the same time, we should draw a line between loud and shouting. Being loud and clear is not difficult. With a little bit of practice, it's easy to be speaking in a way that ensures everybody can hear you. The not so easy part of speaking is to modulate your voice between loud and soft. Just like in the way speakers go loud when they want people to listen, you should try doing that with your own voice. When people want their audience to really listen, they go soft. So changing your volume to match your content plays a key role in communicating your message more effectively. So here's an example on how to modulate between your high and low pitch for an effect on the audience. Note that when you are trying to modulate, you have to decide which sounds better as per the content of your speech and what you want to convey. So I'll be saying the same sentence twice. With a low pitch, it sounds like, I am so happy for you. With a high pitch, it sounds like, I am so happy for you. I'm sure you can feel and hear the excitement in my voice with the higher pitch. You can immediately see how powerful the higher pitch becomes with sentences that require action, excitement, and passion. Now let's look at low voice modulation. Many TV presenters, especially news readers or radio jockeys, use a very low pitch to convey authority and a very serious tone of voice. Here's a sentence spoken in two ways so you can hear the difference for yourself. With a high pitch, the sentence sounds like, now I really want you to pay attention to this because it is super important. And with the low pitch, it sounds like, now I really want you to pay attention to this because it is super important. You can see that the first one sounded a bit too high and flippant or not serious. And overall, it didn't grab the audience's attention that much. But the lower version really sounded like I mean business. Fast and slow for better voice modulation. A common mistake in public speaking is that some of us tend to go really fast, usually because we are nervous or don't want to forget our lines. Going slow helps our message to be clearly understood and be processed by the audience. Going slow also helps us to be calmer and deliver with more clarity. It can also help us to lengthen our speech, just in case it is falling short. But again, just like it is with volume, speaking slowly is not as important as modulating your face between fast and slow. Going fast at some points captures the audience's attention and also creates some sort of excitement among them. Here's a tip for going fast. Say one line in your speech extra fast, and then pause for a few moments to let the audience think and process whatever you just said. This pause is really important, as if you don't, then the audience might not understand at all what you just said. Expressing emotion through tonality, or also called inflection. This is probably the most important part of voice modulations. Voice is a powerful tool to express emotions. Try and reflect your voice with your emotion for a greater impact. The audience will be able to interpret just exactly what emotion you are trying to get across this way. When you talk about happiness, success, and positivity, reflect these words in the way you speak. Now, here are a few tips for voice modulations that I have learned and noted. As usual, if you want to improve, practice makes perfect. A way to practice is to audio record yourself. This is a great way to understand where you're going right or wrong with your tonality. Audio record the first draft of your speech. When you listen to it again, make notes of where you can go louder or softer, where you can go faster or slower, which words to emphasize on to add some range, where you can add some pauses. This will help you to have a greater impact on the audience and overall make your speech much better. Tip number 2 is to avoid slurring. So slurring is when you start off a sentence very strongly, but your voice fades off towards the end of the sentence. This honestly happens to me a lot. The audience can hear the first few words, but they struggle to hear the ending of the sentence. It also sounds kind of odd. To avoid this, practice a little louder than normal and also be conscious of your slurring. This can help you reduce your use of it. And that is the end of the second workshop of expressions and voice modulations. Hope you all understood the topics well and that it would help you in the future. Now, I'll be sharing with you a Kahoot code for a short quiz on these topics. And then I'll be clearing any doubts if you have any. You all can join. Has everyone joined? Raise your hand if you haven't joined. I'll wait. Okay. Anyone who hasn't joined, raise your hand so I know if I should wait or not. Okay, so I'm guessing everyone joined. Okay, I'll start. Having facial expressions is difficult to master. Is it true or false? It is false. Facial expressions come naturally to everyone. You just need to practice it, but it's not difficult. Okay, good job to whoever is in top 5. A good speaker looks at their notes, looks at their phone, looks at the audience, or looks out the window. You can see most of you got this correct, which is great. So Arav, Medha, Prakhar, Kevin, and Aryan, job. In public speaking, it's important to avoid slurring, which I had explained. When you start off strongly and you end faded, that's what you should avoid. Don't avoid pauses, don't avoid noticing audience's emotions, and don't avoid dynamism. Okay. To have a hard-hitting impact in your speech, you should use silence. Speaking faster will not help you have a hard-hitting impact. Speaking slower will also not let you have a hard-hitting impact. Speaking louder, none of them. They'll just help you enhance it. But using silence can help you have an impact on your audience. Good job, everyone. You should pay attention to your audience's facial expressions. True or false? Expect most of you to get this correct. True. Definitely. Don't pay too much attention because that will distract you, but pay some sort of attention to know how you are doing. What do you think the audience trusts more? What you're talking about, or your expressions and your body language? Okay, most of you have gotten this correct. And it was kind of a tricky question, so don't be sad if you got it wrong, okay? Yes, it is your expressions and body language that the audience trusts more. Facial expressions make the audience bored, creep out the audience, create dynamism, or disengage the audience. Create dynamism. Yes, that's what I explained. They convince that you know what you're talking about. They do not bore the audience, disengage the audience, or creep out the audience. Definitely not. What are the basic emotions, the 7 basic emotions I had spoken about? This is a tricky question as well. Yes, it's happiness, sadness, fear, disgust, anger, contempt, and surprise. I thought that the keyword should be contempt. Remember that. It's one of the main 7 emotions, and obviously happy, sad, and angry will be there. Okay, good job to whoever is here. What matters on video calls? Speaking loudly, facial expressions, gestures, or speaking slowly? It's facial expressions. Obviously, the others won't be that valid in a video call. Okay, good job. Now, the last question is not important. It's just how much do you think you understood for the topics covered today? You won't get points for it, don't worry. Okay, so I see most of you have understood, has thought it excellent or pretty good. So I'm saying that good. And whoever put these 2 options, you can ask doubts in case you're not sure of the topic. And now the podium. Arav, good job. Kritin. Good job, all 3 of you, Medha, Kritin, and Arav. Sorry. Now, do any of you have any doubts for in the workshop for expressions or voice modulations? Okay. Yeah, Vaishant.
Hello.
Yeah, hi.
So how do I practice public speaking?
It depends. For public speaking, particularly if you want to practice your speech, then obviously you record yourself and you see how well you are, see where you have to improve for public speaking.
Hello, I don't understand the word dynamism.
Dynamism.
Yeah.
So basically, when you are in a public speak, you're giving a speech, your facial expressions help you create dynamism, which means that they convince the audience that you know what you are talking about, and they convince the audience that you believe in your ideas and what you are talking about. So they make you seem more confident. Did you understand? Okay, so who else has a doubt?
Yeah, so this is Kritir.
Yeah. Hi.
So if we take so for if you said for practicing, we must say it to ourselves in front of the mirror, right?
Yeah, for your expression, say it in front of a mirror.
So for why, I just want to ask you. I just want to ask you if this is what is this is correct if I understood this way. So just if so, we should not speak too loudly. Then we should speak quiet. Not really accurately. You shouldn't speak too loudly or not too less sound, right?
So your question is whether in public speaking you should speak not loudly or softly?
Yeah, like should we speak medium like that?
See, for this question, it's actually depending on your speech. Because remember the examples I had shown earlier? So if
Yeah.
you want to, if you're speaking about something that makes you very happy, or yeah, like what you're very passionate about, then you speak loudly and higher pitches, which is like not low. You speak loud when you're saying something very happy. But when you're talking, when you want to be more serious, when you want to talk about business, when you want to have more, maybe like draw more attention, you speak in a lower pitch and a lower volume as well. So because this just depicts your seriousness and helps you have a more mature tone of voice. So it depends on the subject of your speech, your volume.
So our facial expressions also depend on the subject we are
Yes,
talking about, right?
definitely. When you are going to give a speech, before you give it, try to think of what emotion you are trying to give across to the audience, and then just focus on that emotion, and your facial expressions have to follow that. It can't be something random, which will lead to incongruence.
Oh, okay. Thank you for clearing my doubt.
No problem. So who else has doubt? Ovia. Wait. Yeah, what's your doubt?
I raised my hand by mistake, and the link you have posted for a form, I filled it and returned it back.
Thank you. Yeah, all of you, please fill the form that is posted in chat by Jerry. It's a feedback form. Who else has it? Okay, Sasha. So Sasha,
I did.
sorry?
Actually, I did not understand that why we cannot master facial expressions.
No, actually, I said you can master facial expressions. It's not difficult. You normally have facial expressions when you talk to your friends or anyone. You should know that, right? That when you talk to anyone close to you, have facial expressions. So I'm saying that you should have the same facial expressions when you're in public speaking. And when you're public speaking, to have facial expressions, it's generally more difficult when you're talking to someone. So practicing is what makes it perfect. Obviously, you can definitely master facial expressions. It's not at all difficult.
Okay, thank you.
Who else? Ida. Sorry.
So I still don't understand what is the meaning of slurring.
Slurring, right. So in voice modulations, slurring is a bad habit that many people have, and it's not your fault if you have it, but slurring is when you start off strongly and you end the sentence very softly, like a whisper, and the audience can't hear the ending of your sentence. They can only hear the starting of it. So obviously that doesn't sound nice, and it sounds weird as well. So that's why you should try to avoid it. And as I had said, to avoid slurring, you try to speak louder than normal, and be conscious of your slurring, which means know that you slur so you can avoid it. Did you understand?
Yeah, I got it. Thanks.
Harshini?
Yeah, I would like to do a feedback. I would like to do a feedback. So it was really amazing. Like I got only one question wrong for that. Still, but it was
Great.
amazing. Your experience has been really great. It has helped me a lot to understand so that I can't do like I won't do slurring anymore. I would practice my speeches more often. Like it's really good. It really helped me a lot.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so much,
much.
Harshini. Very nice of you. Anyone else has any doubts? Yeah, Vaishant.
So how do I get people to like me?
You be confident with your public speaking and be confident with your facial expressions as well as voice modulations, which I had covered today. Okay, so is that it for today? The questions?
Good evening, everyone. Aahana, great job. You've done a very good job.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, everyone. Happy to see all of you in such a great number participating for this workshop. It's really great to see your interest and active participation. Really proud of all of you. And I'm sure you all have taken a lot of inputs and you're going to use that in your day-to-day life and improve your public speaking. Correct? Good, Aahana. It was a very enriching experience on facial expressions and voice modulation. It is yet another wonderful workshop by ToastMasters Club. Keep it up.
Yes, ma'am. Very happy to be here. Thank you.